Hi, I'm Sten Vesterli, and this is Beneficial Intelligence, a new weekly podcast with stories and pragmatic information for CIOs and other IT leaders. This week, the speed of decay. Back in 1907, Ernest Rutherford discovered that different radioactive elements were decaying at different rates. Within each element, there was a certain speed of decay, but different elements would be decaying at different rates, and each element would have a half time, the time it would take for half of that element to have broken down into something else. Architect Frank Duffy also discovered the concept of speed of decay. He was interested in buildings, and he came up with the concept of sharing layers. The layers of an architecture, the layers of a building. Some layers change very slowly, the outer walls, the floors, but some layers change more rapidly. The use of a specific building, the rooms within the building, the divisions between rooms, the furniture in the rooms. So, and good architects should consider this speed, these sharing layers. And so the building would be able to change, something would be solid, but other layers would be able to slide over or to move at a different rate. IT architecture also has layers. And these layers also move at different speeds. They have different half-lives. There's a different time frame that they operate on. At the bottom of your technology stack, you're going to have a data layer, a database or some other data storage mechanism. Your data layer moves very slowly. Your data layer is about what you do. So if you are a pharmaceutical company, then you are going to have data elements on chemical compounds, on clinical trials, on adverse events. All of this is things that will change very slowly because it's part of the core of what you do. If you're building trucks, you're going to have components, you're going to have trucks, you're going to have configurations, you're going to have bills of materials. These things are solid and have a half-life of around 10 years. That means it takes about 10 years for half of the data elements, half of the data layer in your application to change. Above the data layer is the business logic layer. Business logic is not about what you do, but about how you do it. So that changes faster. You might decide to run your business in a different way. You might have a good idea. You might be faced with competitive pressure. So the business logic layer in your application has a half-life of around 4 years. It takes about 4 years for half of your code to have decayed so it's no longer fit for purpose. Now, in an IT system doesn't decay like a radioactive element. It doesn't just stop working, but it still decays because the world around the system changes. And when the world around it changes, then it's no longer fit for purpose and it has to be replaced. And it takes about 4 years for you to replace half of the logic in your business layer. On the top of the stack, the part that faces the users, that's the part that changes the quickest. Your user interface layer is going to change to have a half-life of around 18 months. And some elements like mobile apps or customer-facing websites are going to change even faster. You're going to see a half-life of around 12 months for a customer-facing web application. That means in 12 months, half of it will have been replaced. So what does that mean for you? 2 things. First, when there is a major architectural decision to be made, something that's so important that it ends up on your desk, then your architects will present an architecture with layers. But ask them about the speed of decay for each layer. Sometimes the layers are there in the architecture, but they're stuck together. If the layers are stuck together and they have to move together, but they have different speeds of decay, that means that either the slower layer is going to hold you back, or you're going to expend resources moving a layer that actually didn't have to move because another layer needs to change. So ask your architects about the speed of decay that sometimes engender a better thinking, a better understanding of the flexibility of the layers, and allows for a better architecture where the layers can move independently. The second part is for your existing systems. On your systems list, you should have the architect responsible for each system write down how many layers, how many major layers are in the application. Of course, if your architect comes back with, well, this application has one layer, you know that you are likely to be facing a challenge with that system. So it should be highlighted on your systems list that this is a risk factor, because if you have to change one thing, you'll have to change the whole application. So you know it's going to be difficult, and you might want to try to put in a layer above, split it into several layers. Often for old mainframe systems, you put a new user interface layer in front. For systems that already have multiple layers, have your IT architect come up with an estimate of the speed of decay for that layer. He might need to have to involve the business owner, but come up with some estimate of how often will this business logic change, or will this UI layer change, or will this data layer change. When you know the half-life for each layer in an application, and you know when that application was built or was last subject to a major restructuring, then you can actually peer into the future. You can see that, well, this layer is likely to change at this speed and the time is almost up, which allows you to prepare for this change that is likely to be coming, so you can better meet the needs of your business. Thank you for watching Beneficial Intelligence, a weekly podcast with stories and pragmatic information for CIOs and other IT leaders. If you like this content, please spread the word. If you have comments, please get in touch. See you next week.